She kissed her. No one's ever done that before.
That little black waitress must have given my granddaughter drugs. There is no other way to explain it. Genevieve Wexler's voice cut through the fancy dining room like ice on glass. Everyone in the room was shocked and silent. Ellie Wexler, the 2-year-old daughter of the Elbridge tech empire, had just kissed a black waitress on the cheek and was now sweetly sleeping in her arms. A youngster who had bitten, kicked, and yelled at every nanny she had ever had, was grinning. Close your eyes, content. Holding on to a stranger in a pristine service uniform. And just like that, the rules changed. The scene took place in the Aspen Peaks Resort, a winter wonderland for people with a lot of money, plenty of commas in their bank accounts. This was more than just startling, it was impossible to think of. For the Wexlers, America's clean-cut rich elite, this was a scandal that happened slowly. Genevieve rose up, her pearls shaking. "Lincoln," she yelled at her son, the hard-to-find CEO who rarely left the boardroom. "Do something. That black girl, that woman, is controlling Ellie." Lincoln Wexler, on the other hand, didn't move. He looked. Be quiet, figuring it out. The server? Amara Delaney was her name. 26. It was beautiful in a way that made people uneasy since it wasn't polished or bought. It was true. Eyes that shine. She wore her uniform like armor, and her posture was proud even though people gasped and stared. Her smile proclaimed, "I see more than you think." She didn't move, did not beg. She just kept holding the baby. No one in that fancy room knew yet that this moment, this one kiss, would create a firestorm. It would reveal secrets, ruin reputations, and turn the Wexler family dynasty upside down. Amara wasn't just a server, and Ellie wasn't just being bad. And sometimes, the black tale that America attempts to forget is the only one that matters. This is hidden worth, and if you think you know what's going to happen next, think again. Sign up now, because what happens next will make you question everything you thought you understood about race, power, and who actually belongs. People often didn't think much of Amara Delaney. That was her special power. People turned twice when they saw her at 26. It wasn't because she wanted their attention. It was because there was something about her that wouldn't shrink, even in the smallest of places. She wasn't really loud. She wasn't showy. But when she came into a room, even in a plain black uniform and shoes that didn't slip, everything changed. Amara was born in Jackson, Mississippi, and grew up in an area that most people only read about in the news. Her mother, who used to be a nurse's aide and was now a dialysis patient, had raised her on faith, determination, and a kind of love that never ran out, even when there wasn't a warm supper. Amara had big dreams. She wanted to work with kids as a psychologist. She was good at it. Kids trusted her right away, always did. But college costs a lot of money, and being sick all the time costs considerably more. Amara didn't go to college. Instead, she worked at Aspen Peaks, a high-altitude, high-wealth resort in Colorado's icy mountains, where she poured cocktails. People who stayed there requested Wagyu meat for their golden retrievers and grumbled if their towels weren't heated just so. She smiled the whole time, not because she wanted to show off, but her mother had told her once, "They can't own you if you're proud of who you are." And Amara was proud. She was proud of how she acted, proud of how she never let their cold glances freeze her warmth. She was proud that she didn't allow the title Waitress define her. But it didn't imply it was simple. She heard the soft voices, the guests who gave her side eyes that barely hid their disgust, the tips that are passive-aggressive, the way some of her coworkers rolled their eyes when someone said something kind about her. They would whisper, "Pretty girl privilege." They didn't know about the night shifts, the bills from the hospital, or the mornings she spent reading books from the library on how kids grow and develop before work. They didn't see the genuine Amara. But Ellie Wexler did. That time in the dining room wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a spell. It was the subtle bond between two people, one too young to lie, and the other too tired to pretend. And even though the billionaires chatted and planned, Amara didn't give up. Because she knew exactly who she was. And for the first time, someone else had seen it too. Amara Delaney was her name. And this wasn't just work. It was the start of a storm. Ellie Wexler was born into a world where everything had a price, except for serenity. People had already called her difficult, unpredictable, and even dangerous when she was only 2. Of course, no one would say these words out loud in public. It's not about Lincoln Wexler's daughter, the billionaire CEO of Elbridge Tech, and Olivia Wexler, New York's favorite philanthropist. But when no one was looking, the whispers were louder than lullabies. There had been 15 nannies who had come and gone. Each one was chosen by an exclusive agency and had a great resume, spoke more than one language, and had a degree from a well-known child development school. None of them lived longer than 2 weeks. Bites, slaps, yells, full-on meltdowns at posh airports, elevators, and limousines. No one could get to her. No one could calm her down. Not even Olivia. Not Olivia at all. The Wexlers dubbed it behavioral dysregulation. The pediatrician used terms like sensory overload and emotional trauma. Lincoln didn't want to talk about it at all, so he spent all his time reading quarterly reports and going to late-night board meetings. But the truth was easier. Ellie wasn't hurt. She was sad. 6 months ago, Rosa, her first nanny, died in her sleep. Ellie had never really connected with anyone else before her. A woman who sang Spanish lullabies to her, held her through tantrums, and told her stories that made monsters seem like friends. No one in the Wexler family knew how to fill that gap. They tried with pricey toys, playrooms made just for them, and child therapists flown in from Europe. But Ellie didn't want any of it. She yelled at caregivers, tore earrings out of her ears, and kicked anyone who tried to hold her. The penthouse was filled with her cries. Until Amara. The night of the kiss wasn't simply weird, it was huge. Since Rosa, Ellie had never fled to anyone, never held on, never took a break. But that night, in a busy dining room full of people she didn't know, she put her head on the chest of a black waitress and fell asleep. No problems. Don't fight. Just peace. In that one instant, everything the family had built up around Ellie's condition fell apart. It wasn't about getting help. It was about faith. And kids, especially ones like Ellie who are really sensitive, don't pretend to trust. They sense it. Amara hadn't given Ellie phony smiles or expensive stuff. She had given her presence. And for a child who didn't have it, that was all they needed. Genevieve Wexler didn't yell very much. She didn't need to. One look from her, with her flawlessly manicured brow, could stop a waiter in the middle of pouring, quiet a boardroom, or destroy a gala. When she stood up in the middle of the Aspen Peaks dining room, her diamond brooch catching the firelight, and yelled, "That woman is not to touch my granddaughter again," everyone in the room froze. Amara stayed still. Ellie was still snuggled up against her chest, breathing steadily with her thumb gently in her mouth. Next was Olivia Wexler, who brushed invisible lint off her pearl-white blazer. Her voice was softer, but her words were stronger. "She's just the help," Olivia muttered, as if the label said it all. "We don't even know her name. What if she hasn't had her shots? What if she doesn't know what to do?" "Lincoln, say something." Lincoln didn't say anything. Not yet. He was watching Ellie, the tiny child who had been crying and flailing around every night for 6 months. Now she was motionless, quiet, and tranquil. He didn't know if he was relieved or scared about what it signified. Genevieve moved forward slowly and with purpose. "I want her gone," she said, and each word sounded like a mousetrap snapping. "There are rules, limits." She spat the word, "that woman," like it tasted bad. She was hired to fill wine, not to deal with Wexler blood. Amara looked up, and her voice was calm and low. She said, "Her name is Ellie. Not Wexler blood, just Ellie." It was so quiet after that you could cut it. Genevieve's mouth moved. Olivia put her arms across her chest. People close glanced away, acting like they weren't watching yet, leaning in just enough to hear everything. Lincoln cleared his throat. "Let's move this somewhere else." But Genevieve didn't move. "Do you think this is okay?" she growled, looking at her son. "A black waiter holding your child in front of all the legacy families at this resort. Someone will have this on their phone by morning." Amara stayed calm, still holding Ellie. Still there. And that, more than the kiss or the silence, made them the angriest. She didn't move. She didn't get smaller. She stared them in the eye like she was one of them. They all knew the truth deep down. She did. Lincoln Wexler was a man who lived by the numbers, spreadsheets, outcomes that were controlled. He didn't show his feelings, not in public or in private, if he could help it. But that night, something changed in him. Lincoln saw something uncommon as he watched Amara peacefully hold his daughter in the heart of the turmoil. His mother yelled, his wife posed, and the resort workers stood still like deer in headlights. He witnessed things happen. Ellie had never held on to somebody like that before. He came forward, breaking the tension with the calm confidence of someone who is used to being followed. "Everyone calm down," he stated in a low but forceful voice. "Let's talk alone." "No," Genevieve said sharply. "We need to take care of this right away, before anyone else sees it. Before someone puts up a picture." Lincoln didn't pay attention to her. He was looking at Amara. "What's your name?" he inquired. She looked up, still holding the little girl who was asleep on her arms. "Amara Delaney." "You work here?" "Yes, sir. In the evenings, the floor of the dinner hall." He nodded. "Have you ever worked with kids?" She stopped for a moment. "I learned about how kids grow and change in the early years before I had to leave school. I've been a part of after-school programs, helped with schoolwork. I babysat for family that didn't care that I wasn't from their area." Olivia snickered quietly. Lincoln didn't blink. "How long has Ellie been calm?" "About 30 minutes, Amara said. 10 minutes after I picked her up, she started breathing normally." "And you didn't ask to hold her?" "No, sir. She reached out to me." Another break. Genevieve looked like she was going to blow apart, but Lincoln moved closer and stooped down a little to look at his daughter. She moved around in Amara's arms but didn't cry. Didn't pull away. He gazed at Amara once more. "I'd like to give you a trial." "A trial?" Olivia echoed, appalled. "As a temporary nanny," Lincoln went on, "for 1 week. You will stay here with us at the resort. We'll pay for everything, including your meals and salary. We'll discuss about the long term if Ellie responds well." "Not at all," Genevieve responded, her voice getting louder. Lincoln, on the other hand, raised a hand. "I've seen 15 professionals fail. My daughter is sleeping without screaming for the first time in 6 months. That means more to me than any resume." Amara blinked. "Are you sure?" He responded, "No, honestly. But I'm willing to find out." And just like that, the rules changed. Genevieve fumed. Olivia was upset. "But what about Amara?" She grinned. "Not because of winning, but from something deeper. Chance." Amara Delaney didn't think she'd wake up in a fancy hotel room with glass walls and a billion-dollar daughter's daughter snuggled up next to her like a drowsy kitten. But here she was. Room 809 inches, the presidential wing of the Aspen Peaks. Pillows made of down, floors that are warm. Amara didn't dare touch the luxury toddler clothes in the wardrobe without permission. Ellie moved next to her on the big bed, her small fingers wrapped around a lock of Amara's hair. Her cheeks were still red from sleeping all night. A full night's sleep. That alone was a miracle. The personnel at the resort was busy. The rumors had already started by lunchtime. "She's the one who serves food, right? She doesn't even have a license. Did you hear she's staying in the Wexler suite?" Amara didn't care. She presumably spent the morning like Rosa, the first nanny, quietly, kindly, and with presence. No applications, no too much stimulus. Amara was sitting cross-legged on the soft carpet with a wooden tea set and letting Ellie pour fake cups while she hummed along to a melody that only toddlers can understand. Genevieve Wexler showed up shortly before lunch, and her high heels stabbed the marble with every step. "I see we're playing house," she muttered, looking around the room like it made her angry. Amara got up, just letting Ellie be herself. Genevieve lifted an eyebrow. "And what do you really know about her?" Amara said, "I'm learning," in a calm but not meek voice. "And so far she's teaching me more than any book could." Genevieve went without saying anything else. Olivia came by later that day with a tablet loaded of flashcard apps and a brochure for a nanny cam. Amara listened respectfully and then put the device down. Ellie had already taken her second nap of the day when she fell asleep in the middle of the puzzle. Lincoln didn't show up till dinner. He stepped into the room while Amara was helping Ellie brush her teeth. Amara was kneeling next to Ellie at the sink, holding a small cup of water like it was the most essential thing in the world. "She's different," he said. Amara stood up and dried her hands. Or perhaps no one ever let her be herself. Lincoln looked at her. "Why are you so calm?" "Because chaos is loud. But what about healing?" Amara smiled softly. "Healing is quiet, and it takes a while." Amara sat by the window that night, watching the snow fall in the dark after Ellie fell asleep in her arms again. She knew this would be hard. But revolutions are never easy. Genevieve Wexler had been through corporate takeovers, political scandals, and divorce settlements that would have broken other women. She was a maestro of silent war. She never raised her voice or left fingerprints. And now a waitress was outsmarting her. Not okay. Genevieve couldn't ignore the fact that Amara Delaney was in their apartment. She was at ease with Ellie, was quietly confident, and wouldn't bend to anyone. People at the country club would argue otherwise, but it wasn't simply about race. It was about having power. And Amara didn't appear scared of her at all. That made her a threat. Genevieve did what she usually did when she felt threatened. She made plans. The strategy began with murmurs that were put in the ears of housekeepers, front desk clerks, and concierge workers. "Did you know she doesn't have a license? She served drinks just last week. I heard she yelled at a guest once." All whispered in quiet voices, with grins that disguised daggers. Then they started watching. Genevieve had a private security company put in 2 more cameras in the suite without notifying Lincoln. Not seen. No permission. Just in case, she warned Olivia, who looked worried but didn't say anything. "We need proof if this girl messes up." Olivia had reservations, but her loyalty to the Wexler name was stronger than her sense of right and wrong. The bait came next. On the 3rd day, Amara got a call on the resort's telephone when she was making Ellie breakfast. "Hello, this is Sharon from payroll. We saw that there was a mistake in your file. Can you tell me your social security number again?" Amara stopped. "Could you please write that down?" "Please," she said. Click. She realized that wasn't pay. She wasn't dumb. That night, her closet had been changed in a small way. She can't find a pair of her jeans. She got a new bottle of shampoo. Someone had been in the suite when she was out with Ellie. By morning, Amara had found one of Ellie's clothes shoved into her own duffel bag. Someone had done this on purpose to make it look like she was stealing. She didn't say anything. Amara had learned how to get around traps like this when she was a child. Being young, black, and not getting enough respect had taught her that keeping her cool wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a smart move. So she started to write down what was happening. All of it. Times, how things worked together, what Ellie had for dinner, how she slept, who went into the suite. She put everything in an encrypted file on her phone and sent herself a backup every day. Genevieve thought she was making a noose tighter. But what about Amara? She was making a case, and she knew just how to win this game. But this time, the incorrect woman was the target. Amara Delaney had learned a long time ago that the best revenge was quiet. There was no noise. Exact. Clever. Amara didn't worry as Genevieve Wexler's trap got tighter. She did her homework. She paid attention. She changed. Amara learned more about the Wexler family than most of their close friends by the conclusion of her 4th day as Ellie's temporary nanny. She understood that Olivia and Lincoln slept in different rooms, even though it would have been great for pictures. She knew that Genevieve paid a former staffer in secret every 3 months. She understood that behind every smile that looked good was a web of control so tight that it choked the truth. And she knew what their biggest flaw was. Picture. Genevieve didn't care about other people. She cared about how people saw her. Amara gave her something to see, then. Lincoln saw Amara calmly sorting Ellie's toys by color, form, and function at breakfast on the 7th day. The little girl was laughing and stacking blocks with such enthusiasm that the millionaire forgot for a moment how bad their life had gotten. "Can I show you something?" Amara inquired as she took out a folder. There was a thorough, handwritten journal within. Every day, every meal, and every moment of Ellie's emotional growth. Next to it are pictures of Ellie smiling, sleeping, and playing. Notes in audio form, behavioral patterns, ways to calm down that worked. Amara remarked with a sweet smile. I call it the Ellie Project. It's not perfect, but it's data. Real information. Lincoln blinked with shock. You did all of this in 5 days? Amara nodded her head. Because I thought the truth would be more important than what people thought. Amara made her first move that afternoon during a casual lunch meeting that Genevieve assumed she was in charge of. I've been keeping track of everything, she added in a calm but forceful voice, adding the suite's unapproved surveillance cameras. Genevieve's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. And the fake call from payroll. Also the dress that was put in my bag to make it look like I stole it. No sound. Olivia gazed at her plate. Lincoln's forehead creased. Genevieve's eyes narrowed. Of course, I've also backed it all up, Amara said, still calm, for my own safety. And Ellie's. Are you threatening us? Genevieve hissed. No, ma'am, Amara answered, her grin calm and steady. I'm letting you know, because I want tranquility. And that was when the change took place. Lincoln leaned back, seeing Amara for the first time. Not as help. Not even as a babysitter. But as a power. A lady who had made her intelligence a shield and her restraint a weapon. And at that moment, he understood. She wasn't here to defend herself. She came here to win. Lincoln Wexler created his empire by seeing risks before anybody else did. He reads the stock market like most people read a menu. But this was about me. For days he had watched Amara Delaney do what no expert had been able to do. Not only calm Ellie down, but also bond with her. Help her get better. Lincoln understood the genuine threat after hearing about hidden cameras and traps put against this woman who had only showed strength and kindness. Not Amara, but the ones who have his last name. After putting Ellie to bed with Amara's help that night, Lincoln requested her to stay. Just to talk, he said, offering her a cup of tea over the marble kitchen island. Amara, always calm, nodded. Okay. He asked, what would you do if this were your daughter? What if someone was trying to kill the one person who made her feel safe? Amara's gaze stayed steady. I would tell the truth, not to get back at someone but to safeguard what counts. Lincoln nodded slowly, and something moved behind his ordinarily unreadable face. That's exactly what we'll do, they said. The next day, Lincoln brought in an old friend named Camille Roth. She used to work for the federal government as an investigator but now works as a private compliance consultant. Camille worked on family issues that were very public and quite dangerous, and she was heartless in court. Lincoln informed her, I want everything written down. Watching, lies about someone, entries that weren't allowed. I want to know who knew, who signed off, and how far this goes. Camille nodded her head. I'll have a full report by the end of the week. Amara went about her business as usual, her serene smile hiding the tempest that was brewing behind the scenes. She kept an eye on how Ellie was doing, giving Camille updates every day, staying professional, even when the rumors got worse. Genevieve became more hostile as she felt something was changing. She called the board of directors at Lincoln's company, talked to lawyers who work with families, tried to come up with a fresh story, that Amara was using Lincoln, that someone was trying to seduce him. Lincoln wasn't on the defensive anymore, though. He changed Genevieve's security team to watch over the hotel. He took away Olivia's business credit card as she tried to pay for a smear campaign. And most significantly, he set up a reconciliation dinner for the family that Genevieve couldn't say no to. I want to clear the air, Lincoln remarked, his voice as calm as ever. That night, Genevieve came ready for war. But what about Lincoln? He arrived with the truth. Camille sat down at a table with candles and tension and proceeded to talk about every act of sabotage, every violation of trust, and every illegal recording that had been made without permission. Olivia stayed still. Genevieve tried to say something. Lincoln put up a hand. That's enough, he said. This is the end now. Amara didn't say anything across the table. But what's inside? She was aware. The attack back had begun. And this time, they did what she said. The Wexler family knew how to have a good time. Above silk dresses, chandeliers shone. The champagne glasses clinked. The Aspen Peaks ballroom was full of power, privilege, and the illusion of authority. The ceremony tonight was described as a celebration of the late patriarch Maxwell Wexler and the long-awaited family trust distributions. But there was tension under the gloss. Lincoln has changed this party into something else entirely. A time to pay. Amara stood at the rear in a basic black dress that she had borrowed from the staff wardrobe department at the resort. She fit right in with the crowd of sparkling guests, quiet, calm, and watchful. Genevieve looked beautiful in emerald silk as she shook hands and kissed donors in the air. Olivia floated next to her, with perfect posture and a tight smile. They thought that tonight would bring back order and that the family's wealth and prestige would be more important than whatever allegations Lincoln had made. But they didn't know what he was going to do. The string quartet stopped playing at exactly 8 p.m. Lincoln got on stage. He didn't wear a tuxedo. Instead, he wore a fitted navy suit and had eyes that had seen too much in the prior 10 days. He tapped the mic once, and the room became quiet. He started by saying, "Thanks to everyone for being here. We honor my father tonight. A man who believed in legacy, not just in name but also in honesty." People in the crowd nodded. Suddenly, a projector behind him turned on. Email. Video from a security camera. Legal papers with highlighted parts that show illegal wiretaps, fake reports, and tampering with trust funds. A slow gasp spread like fire. "And tonight," Lincoln went on, "we're not just reading a will. We show what has been kept secret for too long." Genevieve stood still, her champagne glass shaking. Camille moved forward. "As the legal executor of Maxwell Wexler's estate, I'm here to confirm a clause that was added months before his death. This clause names a third-party evaluator who will be in charge of judging the moral character of those who inherit important assets." People went from gasps to whispers. Camille said coldly, "And after looking at recent behavior, some people have been disqualified." Genevieve's mouth dropped open. Olivia moved. Lincoln turned to look at them straight on. "You tried to hurt the only person who ever made Ellie feel safe. You tried to control what I did. My family." After that, he turned to Amara. "She's not just a babysitter. She makes my daughter laugh again. And from now on, she will be a part of this family's future, whether you like it or not. Be quiet." A shock. And suddenly there was applause. From the rear of the room, from employees, from visitors who had heard tales but never thought the truth could be this bad or this bold. Genevieve stepped back and couldn't speak. The game was done. And Amara had never even raised her voice. The Wexler estate was quieter than it had ever been 2 weeks later. The cameras weren't there anymore. The personnel walked with less weight. And for the first time since the scandal broke, Wexler represented more than just rich people and strict rules. It meant a shift. Genevieve Wexler had gone into hiding. Her seats on the boards of charities disappeared overnight. Her phone, which used to be full of invites and favors, was now quiet. People in her social circles now talked about her in the past tense. Olivia secretly asked for a divorce. She couldn't stand the embarrassment of not speaking up and letting Genevieve pull strings and use terror as a weapon. She departed with a small amount of money and a lot of regret that money couldn't fix. And what about Ellie? Ellie was doing great. The fits ended. The night terrors went away. Her giggle, which used to be infrequent and quiet, suddenly rang through the house like a song. She followed Amara around like a shadow, copying her actions, laugh, and calling her Mama A when she believed no one else could hear her. Lincoln saw everything. He had attempted to fight this feeling. He tried to convince himself that it was appreciation, admiration, or even relief. But when he saw Amara reading Ellie bedtime tales, heard her singing gently in the kitchen, and looked at him with those eyes that saw right through all the layers he had built up over the years, he understood. It wasn't just about Ellie anymore. It was all of them. Lincoln turned to Amara one night after Ellie fell asleep between them on the couch. He muttered, "You saved my daughter's life." Amara looked down at the tiny hand that was resting on her arm. "She also saved mine." He kissed her on the forehead. Not out of possession, but respect. Amara Delaney had come into their world with nothing but a waitress uniform and a heart that no one had bothered to see. She had altered everything. She had dealt with bigotry, deception, and sabotage with such grace that nothing could stop her. And now, she was no longer alive. She was ahead. They started the Ellie Foundation, a nonprofit that teaches and helps women of color in early childhood development, mental health advocacy, and educational fairness. Amara gave speeches on stages all around the country, not just as the girl who beat the Wexlers, but also as a voice for every woman who had been told she wasn't good enough, wasn't worthy, or wasn't permitted in the room. Now, she was in charge of the room. Ellie was always next to her in every picture, story, and news clip, smiling. Love had won. Justice had spoken. And the story that almost everyone forgot had become a legacy that no one could ignore. It's not only a narrative about color, money, or a child who needed affection. It's a narrative of strength that isn't seen. The kind of quiet strength that doesn't need to be heard but is felt. A presence that can't be ignored. Amara reminded us that true power comes from being honest in a world where the loudest voice or the highest title frequently gets the most attention. She didn't strike back with fists or flames. She utilized truth, patience, and grace, and that's what made her unstoppable. People like Amara are routinely ignored. People judge others by their skin color, the clothes they wear, or the title on their name tag. But this story shows us, and Ellie, Lincoln, and even the Wexlers had to learn the hard way, that real worth has nothing to do with being privileged. It's about who you are. It's about how you act, even when no one is looking. Amara didn't need to be in the spotlight. She didn't want compliments. She did the right thing over and over again until the world had to notice. And that might be the most important thing to learn. That in a society still divided by walls that can be seen and those that can't, the strongest act of revolt is to keep coming back with love. For anyone who has been looked down on. For everyone who has been dubbed just a waitress, just a cleaner, or just anything else. You are never simply one thing. You have a lot of potential, power, purpose and action. And maybe, just maybe, your narrative may change the rules. Share this story if it touched you. Tell someone who feels like they don't matter today that their light still matters. If you want more stories like this, real, raw, and unabashedly powerful, sign up for Hidden Worth. Because the world might try to shut down voices like Amara's. But we won't. Not here. Never. You are worth something. You can speak up. And you fit in. Right where you are.